The Padres soap opera continues as this offseason of absolute, I don't even know, nothingness continues. I've been harping on this Alexander and the no good, terrible, very bad day. What's the name of the book?
I don't know. You're the one that references it all the time.
I reference it all the time. So, because the offseason, right? I mean, from 24 consecutive scoreless innings to the lawsuit to Roki picking the Dodgers and then Jurickson Profar picking the Atlanta Braves. We're going to hear from Jurickson Profar in a moment. I know they just played on the Fletch Zone. And Profar just took a shot at the Padres' current ownership situation. I don't even know if it's a shot. I think he's just being truthful. And I've referenced Alexander and the terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day, but it's more than a day for the Padres. Like, Jim, the hits keep on coming for this organization. I saw the clip that you put on social media. I thought it was on some podcast or something. He just took a shot at Padres ownership with the Atlanta media in his press conference.
It was tweeted by the Braves Twitter account.
Right. This was his introductory press conference. He was in Curacao.
I believe so, yeah.
But he was on Zoom. And the media was asking questions of Profar on his signing with the Braves.
And the Braves posted his entire almost 14-minute introductory press conference.
Okay.
And so I went to listen to it because I wanted to see what Profar had to say. Right. I love Profar. I wanted to see what he had to say about San Diego, and maybe if someone asked him about, the free agency process and if the Padres ever made an offer to him. And I'm listening, and it's kind of the same old stuff in a press conference. Not much there. Like, oh, why do you love the Braves? And what number are you going to wear? And how do you feel like you've improved? And yada, yada, yada. And all of a sudden I hear Padres ownership. And I go, what? I got to do a double take. Like, excuse me, who said that?
Mm-hmm.
And it was Jurickson Profar. And when you hear what Profar has to say, it's not good because this has now gone beyond just like me and you talking about this. The players are talking about this, and it's affecting the Padres' ability to put together a winning baseball team, maybe for the foreseeable future. If you can't sign free agents, and one of the reasons why free agents maybe don't want to sign there anymore is because of the issues with the Padres ownership, you got some major problems on your hand.
Let's hear the question and answer. This is Jurickson Profar this afternoon with the Atlanta media, a day after signing a 3-year, $42 million deal. Let's listen and react.
Did it become apparent to you that maybe you wouldn't return to the Padres and you kind of fielded the interest from some of the other teams?
Obviously the Padres have some issue with the ownership and all that, and it was difficult to go back, but Alex showed a lot of interest in me, and I love that.
So it's his exact quote was the Padres have some issues with the ownership and all that. This is from a player on the inside. This isn't trying to recruit Roki and what he's hearing on the street. Jurickson wasn't on the street. He's been with the Padres as much as anyone, by and large, the last 4 years. He was just with you when you won 93 games. He's the heart and soul of your team in 2024. And he's telling the Atlanta media, he's saying this publicly. Who knows what he's saying privately? He's saying publicly, the Padres have some issues with the ownership and all that. I mean, that really is. I know you've touched on this. Listen, if we find out that they're not landing players because of the ownership dispute, then you got to consider the future of what ownership looks like for San Diego Padres. And now you're hearing it from Jurickson Profar. We heard Roki talk about sustainability was a big reason why he picked LA. The sustainability of the front office, we kind of parsed through that. This is straight from Jurickson's mouth. This isn't Jon Jim. This is straight from a player that was here in 2024. And he is recognizing the issues going on right now with the Padres organization.
Following that up, saying it was difficult for me to go back. I think that goes on the lines of like, I wanted to return, but it was difficult because, they were not going to offer me the money and there's ownership issues there. And because of that, good luck trying to get any money out of those guys anymore. I mean, now I firmly believe that King, Cease, and Arise are gone. Like there is what, a less than 5% chance one of those players returns after 2025.
Oh, I got you. At the end of their current deal, their
Right.
last year of arbitration.
If they're not traded.
Well, they have bobbleheads for all of them.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
We'll see if they're here in 2025. But I mean, the Roki thing, we were parsing through words of a translator. I never was able to definitively say Roki chose LA over San Diego because of ownership. We could always say maybe ownership played a factor. It certainly didn't help. I want to hear it again. Frank, can we hear it again? It's only 30 seconds. The question and answer, because it's interesting. I picked up on the Padres have some issues with the ownership and all that. You mentioned, though, what he continued to say about it would be hard to go back. So I want to hear that again. This is from Jurickson Profar this afternoon with the Atlanta media.
Did it become apparent to you that maybe you wouldn't return to the Padres and you kind of fielded the interest from some of the other teams?
Obviously the Padres have some issue with the ownership and all that, and it was difficult to go back, but Alex showed a lot of interest in me, and I love that.
Yeah, he's mentioning Alex Anthopoulos, the GM for the Braves.
But did he say the Seidler effect?
No.
What did he start by saying?
He didn't mention Seidler's name. He said it was difficult for me to go back because there's ownership issues with the Padres right now. Like,
there was a first sentence I didn't understand.
I don't think I don't know. Play it again, Brent. He did not mention Seidler. Are you listening to something different? Put both your headphones on and listen.
I think he says Seidler.
Obviously the Padres have
no, obviously the Padres
some issue with
the Padres effect
with the ownership and all that.
I feel like we're listening to
what are you listening to? You need your ears cleaned out?
No,
it's like it's Ghost Hunters
like
or something.
Jurickson Profar is the easiest player. He is not the easiest player to understand.
I know he's not.
He's not.
But
and it's just because of his accent.
He said
his accent.
He said the Padres and the ownership issues right now, and that it was difficult for him to go back. And I put this out on social media, and now it's like, blowing up. And you're seeing a lot of people now saying things how this is not good for San Diego. And if you have a guy like Profar saying this ain't like Roki, who has no idea of anything. He is so, green when it comes to Major League Baseball. He knows nothing. Profar's a 10-year vet. He's seen a lot. And he was a leader in that clubhouse. He was the heart and soul of that team, which I, firmly believe in. And when you have guys like that saying things about, well, it was difficult for me to return because, there's some ownership issues there. That's an issue, and that's a problem.
Well, remember also, Profar's entire offseason has been spent, at least in his training, with Fernando Tatis Jr. So if he's telling the Atlanta media about it, it's clearly being discussed among Padres players. They have phones. They can text. They read the papers like we do. They listen to sports talk radio like our listeners do, right? So everyone understands what's going on here. I think at the end of the day, the reason we've gone down this path, and we jumped on the lawsuit the second we became aware of it, and we've touched on it more than anyone else. We've touched on this thing more than anyone else, because at the end of the day, the point was this: will the lawsuit impact their ability to win and ultimately bring a championship to the city of San Diego? For me, it's very easy to say, yes, it's negatively impacting their ability to win at the highest level. I can't guarantee to you they're not going to win. I hope they do. I think they have a core of players that can still put them in a position where they can be successful. But like, if this is holding you back, that alone is problematic. These other teams around you, specifically LA, but it's about more than LA. Mets, Phillies, whomever, Giants, Diamondbacks. These other teams don't have any hindrances in front of them, right? They don't have roadblocks. They don't have any headwinds. You got to do everything in your power from an organizational perspective to point in one direction. But you have one of your players from the inside saying they're not pointed in the right direction. There's an issue right now. It would be hard to go back. This on the heels of Roki Sasaki choosing LA over San Diego. And again, the terrible, horrible, no good, very bad offseason. How could you look at it any other way? It just continues right now for the Padres.
I don't know how else to put it. It's pretty black and white. If the ownership problems are affecting the on-field product, you sell the team. I mean, it's pretty simple. Pretty simple. You can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't have issues with the front office and the ownership group and still like expect to win at a very high clip. You might get lucky. You might have a good year, but you don't have that synergy like you did a couple years ago where it felt like everything was in place. And again, like nobody could have predicted the passing of Peter, and it was as unfortunate as it could get. But like now you are in a situation where are you going to try to force a square peg in a round hole, or are you going to do something that's for the betterment of the franchise and let somebody take this thing over and not have these issues anymore at the front office, or not front office, but the ownership?
Well, the answer is no. This is status quo. The team isn't for sale. And even if they were for sale, they're not sold before the 2025 season. I know that. So the team isn't for sale. They're changing the chairperson, according to Kevin Acee and Dennis Lin, from Eric Atsenda to John Seidler, reportedly. Sheil Seidler is fighting for control of the organization. It may be settled. We've had people come on, I think the Sportico writer that broke that story, say that there have been other ownership squabbles and disputes that have gone to court and litigation that have taken 8 years to play out, like the Denver Broncos. And by the way, the 8 years the Broncos were in litigation, they went to the postseason 0 times, not to tie the Broncos to the Padres. The Orioles went through the same thing with their ownership group after the passing of their primary owner. I guess the point is this. It's not to say they can't make the postseason and win 87 games. They can. The point being that it's going to take everything and then some to get to a World Series and win one. You have Manny Machado. You're paying him hundreds of millions of dollars to be here over the course of a decade. Manny Machado is here to win. We can, argue the merits of what he's done on field, but you don't have Machado and Bogarts and Tatis all here to win 86 games and be held back by your organization. So I don't care if it's John Seidler or Sheil Seidler or the next owner, whomever's in charge better be doing their damnedest to win. And right now it doesn't seem like they're doing that.
Show me a professional sports franchise that has infighting with the ownership group, particularly family members, a lawsuit involved, and show me their championship during like that period of time.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know. I haven't done the research.
I mean, either, but I'll wait. I'll probably will be waiting for a while because I can't think of something off the top of my head where I'm like, man, that team, they overcame a lot and they still won a championship with awful ownership.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't. I'm not saying that these guys are awful. I'm just saying that when you have issues and a lawsuit involved, and now Jurickson Profar, who, I mean, his words carry a lot of weight.
Sure.
He was a huge part of this team. He is not just some scrub. Dude was an all-star last year. And when you hear stuff like this said from Profar, you know that everybody's talking about this. You don't think that current Padres players have talked about this or have speculated like if I'm Michael King or Dylan Cease, I'm probably talking to my agent and my family and be like, well, this is probably our last year in San Diego. Better get ready. That's not buy, that's rent. Like, guarantee that the players on this team have talked about this if Profar's saying something along these lines, because it's affecting them, and it has affected this offseason to the point where because you couldn't sign Profar was not because you didn't want him. It's because, as Profar said there, Padres ownership, they have issues.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that Profar broke the camel's back. I think he's a very good player. And I'm not saying you can't win without Jurickson Profar, but it's one thing after the next. And at some point, you don't have the same chances of winning as you had a year ago. The timing of the lawsuit is probably not great, but would it have been good if the lawsuit came out in June and then it's trade deadline, or in November and you're heading into the winter meetings? There's no good timing. But with the benefit of hindsight, I hear Jurickson Profar and I heard Roki Sasaki. And we're talking about instability of an organization. We weren't really talking about that before the lawsuit. We were saying we don't have Peter. He's not in charge. They're not spending the way they used to. They cut $100 million from payroll. What's the future of the organization? But we weren't talking about it like this until 3 weeks ago.
No, it was like, what's going on here? Like, we briefly talked about the John Seidler appointing to be the control person of the team.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, if you guys are constantly saying you're going to uphold Peter's legacy, then you guys need to do something to match those words. Like, with action.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been no action. And then the lawsuit dropped like the following week. And let me just put it this way. Say the lawsuit never did drop.
Mm-hmm.
You think they're really we're going to sign Jurickson Profar?
Nobody with perception's reality. He wouldn't have said this.
I know
he would have said they didn't have the money.
I know.
Yeah.
But you think they really would have signed him?
No, they wouldn't have. Nothing has changed.
Do you think they really would have landed Roki Sasaki?
No.
Okay.
But guess what? The narrative now is that the reason they're not landing these players is because of the lawsuit.
I get it. And I think that's a huge reason why. I do. But also, let me just say it this way. All right. Say that lawsuit never drops.
Yep.
Say we don't know what's going on. And we are continued to be left in the dark.
Mm-hmm.
You know, fans, us, everybody. Like, what's going on here? Right? A lot of questions, no answers, have no idea how this thing is operating. Right? And they go along this process, and all the stuff that Shield put in her lawsuit never comes out. I'd rather have it come out that way than us never knowing about it ever. Because now it puts to light like issues that could be really troublesome and really hurt this franchise.
So basically, and I agree with what you're saying. You're saying by being a whistleblower, so to speak, well, she might be losing the battle for the team. They may win the ultimate war, which is in the short term, this may not be beneficial.
Right.
And maybe it's not impacting them, to your point. Maybe they don't have Roki and they don't have Jurickson regardless. But maybe by bringing these issues to light, by the way, they're allegations. We'll see if this is litigated, if there's a settlement. But by bringing this to light, maybe it leads to change. Maybe she ultimately is the chairperson.
Right.
Maybe the team is sold and the Padres moving forward, medium term, long term, are better off.
Yeah. One of the big things,
this is public.
Yeah. One of the big things in there that she brought to light in her lawsuit that she is claiming is that the Seidler bros are essentially going to be using the Padres as like their ATM.
Right.
You know, like, hey, we're just going to make money off this and not invest in the team as much as our brother Peter did, and selling off assets at lower cost to make money or whatever the case may be. The whole moving the team thing, I think, was overblown on Shield's end, right? But when you say those things, it really makes people perk up and go, excuse me?
Yep.
But there are things in there that you, if we didn't know, then we'd be sitting here asking ourselves every day, what's going on? What's going on? What's going on? Now we still are.
That's what I was going to say.
We still
really are.
But at least we have like some type of path to go down of like, well, these are reasons that are being claimed by Shield as to why these things are happening.
My biggest issue, and forget about the lawsuit for a second, it's really the team's response to the lawsuit, saying that we still fancy ourselves as fulfilling Peter's legacy. And I get it. We're in this micro short term. All of this is played out over like 2, 3, 4 weeks. Mm-hmm. So I get you don't have to go trade for the best player in baseball over those 2, 3, 4 weeks to prove that you're in it to win it. But when you say you're going to honor Peter's legacy and you cut payroll and you can't re-sign some of your core pieces like Jurickson Profar, shoot, you let Kyle Higashioka walk. I mean, all these players have walked, right? You're not landing anyone prominent. Like, how can you say you are committed to fulfilling Peter's legacy and upholding his commitment and legacy when over the last 15 months since his passing or whatever it is, you've cut payroll by $100 million and you've continued to double down on doing absolutely nothing this offseason? I mean, I guess you could say, well, this is just the short term. They're going to change their ways to the medium or long term, but is it the short term? Look at the last 2 off seasons.
They have cool bobblehead giveaways.
Great. And Gallagher Square looks awesome.
I know.
And the
I know.
ballpark's great.
I know. And that is like like, hey, look over here while the house is, on fire over here.
Right.
Like, hey, don't focus on this, focus on this. And they've done a really good job at that. But eventually you're not going to be able to fool fans. You're just not, with cool giveaways and whatnot, because eventually what will happen is fans will be so mad that that voice of the fan will become the only thing that you hear. And right now it kind of is. You lose not only a fan favorite in Profar, and I'm okay with teams losing fan favorites, but he's more than just that. He's more than just a fan favorite that everyone loved. He was such a huge part of this team. And it sounds like, hearing from Profar talk to the Atlanta media today during his introductory press conference with the Braves, is that a big reason why he's not in a Padres uniform anymore is because of the ownership issues with the Padres. And because of that, it would have been very difficult to re-sign here for what he was looking for in the market, which, by the way, I know a lot of people are saying it's an overpay. That's like the going rate, and it's actually probably a little less than what he maybe could have gotten if it was just like cut and paste. Everybody gets what they are, deserving on the market.
No one is saying it's an overpay other than Padre fans.
That's right.
Because he's no longer a Padre.
You have to try to justify it in your mind as a Padres fan that he's God's overpay, and I understand, but he was the best here in San Diego. He might suck in Atlanta. He might. But what I do know is that when he was in a Padres uniform, he was worth that money.
Can we play it again, Brent? Jurickson Profar to the Atlanta media on a Zoom press conference. You'll hear the question and his answer related to the Padres ownership issues. This is right from Jurickson Profar himself, signing a 3-year deal with Atlanta yesterday, meeting with the media today, and saying this.
Did it become apparent to you that maybe you wouldn't return to the Padres and you kind of fielded the interest from some of the other teams?
Obviously, the Padres have some issue with the ownership on all that, and it was difficult to go back, but Alex showed a lot of interest in me, and I love that. I love that.
Every time I hear it, I just cringe even more.
You're right.
Because this is going to affect the foreseeable future with free agents in particular. Trades, players can't do anything about trades, unless they have no trade clause and they can say they don't want to go there. But as far as free agents go, you're going to be dealing with this for a while until things are figured out. Like if you are trying to pursue somebody in an off season and they want to go somewhere where they, 1, are going to get paid, 2, can win, and 3, going somewhere that's like a stable organization, no drama, no BS, right? That was the Padres a couple years ago, and now it's the complete opposite. And so because of that, good luck finding guys that you can bring back here. But it also has to do with the Padres aren't just going to spend any money either. They're just not going to spend.
That's what I was going to say. Is it about ownership? At the end of the day, I think players will take the money by and large.
By and large, yes.
Because we heard, Manny Machado wants to play in Florida or in the East Coast. No, he doesn't. He wants the most money.
But also, Peter was a huge part of that process, bringing Manny here to San Diego.
I'm sure he was, but you know what also was a big part of it? $300 million.
That's
when the next best offer was $200 from the White Sox.
I agree.
So, and you know how you get Xander Bogaerts, the Red Sox, to offer you $140.
But it doesn't hurt to have an owner that's stable, that cares deeply.
It doesn't. But I guess I would say this: if the Padres had $42 million to offer Jurickson Profar, I do wonder if he would be here. The issue is you can't compare. It's not apples and apples. They have no money. So he wasn't coming back if their ownership was the king. I don't know who the king is. Like
the king.
Right. I mean, he wasn't coming back because they didn't have any money to pay him. Maybe that's the point he's making. Their ownership is in such a bad spot that they don't have the same money that they used to have. But all things aren't equal. I'd be more concerned, Jim, if he turned down $42 million from the Padres.
Well, they weren't even close, according to reports.
That's because they are trying to get rid of payroll.
Correct.
Not add to it. So,
correct.
So this isn't even a conversation. Jurickson Profar wasn't coming here 2 years, $6 million when he has a 3-year, $42 million offer from Atlanta.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the point he's trying to make, and I could be wrong because I didn't talk to him, but I think he's saying their ownership issues are they ain't offering me that.
They got no money.
They have no money. That's the issue.
Yeah, it was difficult for me to return there because they used to have no money.
I don't think he read through all 27 pages of the filing.
No. But it is a thing. Like 2 and 2 go together. The ownership problems with the Padres combined with they have no money, that equals disaster.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, yes. Because now, all right, so you're like, okay, you don't have Profar. Can you work around it? Okay. You don't have Ha-Seong Kim. Can you work around it? Okay. You don't have Higashioka. Can you work around it? Okay. You don't have Joe Musgrove. Not their fault.
Right.
Can you work around it? At some point, like, can you work around it?
Because 2026 will come around the corner very quickly. And when that happens, you have a rotation now of a 40-year-old Darvish and a Joe Musgrove coming off of Tommy John. And that is it. And you will have lost Michael King. You will have lost Dylan Cease. You will have lost Luis Ariz.
Well,
and you're another year older with Manny and Xander.
So you think I'm naive to hold out hope that the Padres and Michael King right now are working on an extension?
Yes. Like extremely naive. Yeah.
So you think so you actually said earlier, you think there's a less than 5% chance that any of the following three players return in 2026. Luis Ariz, Dylan Cease, Michael King.
Yeah,
you think any of the three returning, there's a less than 5% chance even one of them is back?
Yes. I had hope. Even during the law, I had hope. I was like, look, maybe they're going to, do something to kind of quiet this all down and sign Michael King to an extension. Now, like with no word on if they're going to come to an agreement before his arbitration case, which, I mean, is another bad look for the team that they have to go to arbitration for the first time under Preller. Not on Preller. That's on the ownership. So, yeah, I do believe that. I do, in this moment in time, hearing that from Jurickson and then the stuff from Roki, which I don't think it was directly at the Padres. It was just more or less like the Dodgers are the best.
Sure.
But hearing all of the stuff now and seeing the inaction with this team, yeah, I give it a less than 5% chance that one of any of those three are returning.
760. If Preller didn't feel like Profar was worth $6 million a year 2 years ago, right, coming off 22, when Peter was still alive, I'm sure Preller feels like he's not worth $14 million a year 2 years later. Perhaps ownership issues was Profar's conclusion and not the whole story. Okay, I'll go down that path for a moment, but hear me out. What other alternative does AJ Preller have? What you're going to end up doing is taking Jurickson Profar and you're going to replace him with a replacement level player. Is that fair?
Yeah,
they're going to dip into the minor leagues potentially, or a minor league free agent, non-roster invitee type. Maybe they go on the edges and sign the Harrison Bader type player. Okay,
they can't sign anybody.
It's still going to be likely a downgrade. That player's not going to be a 4-WAR player. So my point is, okay, maybe AJ Preller doesn't think he's a $14 million a year player. That's not my point. How do you replace who this player is?
And if they did sign Harrison Bader to like a 3 for $30, it's going to piss me off even more.
Right. It's like, why didn't you just reach an extra couple $1 million?
Right. Like, come on, there's no actual salary cap here. You can spend money. It's okay. But it's in the rules.
The difference is Harrison Bader had an 86 OPS plus last year, and Jurickson Profar had a 122. As in, to put it in layman's terms, Harrison Bader is a 0 to 1 WAR player last year, and Jurickson Profar is a 4 WAR player. That's my point. It's not about the money. It's about the productivity. It's gone now. Where are you finding it? Trade? Maybe.
And Profar had 2 years here where his WAR was above 3.
Right.
2.
Yeah. 2 of the last 3 years.
Yeah. 2 of the last full years here in San Diego.
His last 2 years here.
Right.
22 and 24.
Yeah. And people are like, oh, guy's a bum. Did you not watch Profar in a Padres uniform?
I don't think people are saying that. I do think some people are saying, you're right, Padres fans say it's a reach to pay him $42 million.
You're never going to produce that year ever again. Right. That's a lot of money. He didn't get $100 million, guys.
Right. I mean, $42 million in today's baseball is a very middling player, correct?
For his production last year and looking at his entire career, the projection said 3 for 48 or 3 for 50, around there.
Right.
3 for 45-ish, right? So when he got 3 for 42, that's less than what the projection showed.
It got like a 10%, 20% discount.
So in that case, how would you not be okay with that deal if you're a Padres fan?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think a lot of people are getting a little cute with the dollars, and I get it. The dollars matter to the Padres. I'm less concerned about the dollars and more concerned about how do you replace this player.
Yeah, I'm way more concerned about the player you lost than how much you were paying him, because $14 million a year, guys, the team's paying Xander 28.
Right.
And he is infinitely worse than Jurickson Profar is.